this is Carrie O'Donnell from Tarot Soul Writer, and today I have Heather and Priscilla from the Crone Zone.
Hi, guys.
Welcome.
Thank you.
So today we are going to talk about life quakes. And I had written down, this is a term that was coined by an author, and he wrote about the power of life transitions and how they can transform us. And as you can see, like life quakes, it's like an earthquake. It's something that shakes up your life. It can be unexpected or expected. Sometimes it's involuntary, like it's something that happens to you and you don't seem to have control over the situation. And we're going to talk about how we've experienced those transitions in our lives and how it led to spiritual transformation. So I am going to leave it to you ladies to start with our childhood transitions. And this could be something when we were really young that may have really lifted us to new levels, or maybe as young adults, because I feel like we're still kind of learning in our 20s as well. And I'm going to ask if you could share some of those stories.
I can start off at about 8 or 9 years old.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
And I had a dog, and she was hit by a car. Because of that, I learned much, much later, but because of that, I started using my hands as healing hands. I asked her traveled to the vet where she was at and viewed the vet sleeping there next to her kennel, because he said if she made it through the night, she'd be okay. So yes, it did introduce me into some of those things, but I didn't realize that was what was happening. But I was using my hands and sending energy to her when she came home. So I was using my healing skills, and I was also at, remote viewing. So that was a big thing, and I remembered it. And
I'm like really curious, like you're so young, like,
I know,
did you
right?
just have a feeling like I need to do this? Was there something that told you inside to do that? Or is it just like a natural thing?
Well,
Like,
for some reason or other, I had read a book, and it talked about somebody with healing hands. And so I was trying to do that to get her feeling better.
At 9 years old, you read a book
9
about
years
healing
old.
hands.
Yeah, it was
Wow.
it was about Indians, and one of the girls there had healing hands.
How
And I said, I
cool.
wonder. So I was just doing that with her everywhere I could. As far as the remote viewing goes, I just figured I had a really good imagination.
I can imagine. Yeah.
I imagined him sleeping there. No, actually, he had been sleeping there in a chair outside her kennel watching her, so.
Hi, warrior girl.
But as far as I knew, it was a really good imagination. That's what my mom said. You have a really good imagination.
She actually didn't know until about a year ago that she was a
Or a
remote
couple of years
viewer.
ago, yeah, that I could do that.
all right, so
Well,
you're
a lot of
that's
these
a
things
remote
that
viewer.
happened because it
Yeah.
was frowned on in my family. Anything like that, they didn't believe in. Just like I always went barefoot, even if I was walking between my house and the neighbor's house and it was snowing, I would go barefoot across to to babysit. Well, I'm grounding, but I didn't know that,
Yeah,
because that's not something we
It shows
talked
you
about.
how innate it is in us. If we just
Exactly.
listen.
If we just do what we do. And in my family, you didn't mention it to anybody, and it meant nothing to me until later when I was doing real getting into the work of it. Then I'm going, oh, is that what I was doing? Oh, I remember doing something like that. I just thought everybody did it, or I had a good imagination. But I also know, for some reason or other, I know the healing hands part that I did to her, it worked.
Mhm.
I know that it worked on her. I don't know how,
Mm-hmm.
but I know, and I knew then that it was working. So I was constantly doing it to her. But yeah, that was early on, something that changed a lot of things, because then I would go ahead and work with my hands to try to help things. It got to where
You worked at a vet for years too,
yeah,
didn't you?
I worked for a vet, and they were trying to find out what was wrong with the dog, and I said his neck is broken.
You just knew.
I just
She
knew,
just
and they
knew.
took an X-ray, and that's what was wrong. His neck was broken. So, it did start me out, but I didn't realize that's what it was doing
Right.
much, much, much later.
And that
But
like, a life quake is really your pet being hurt, that's
yeah,
right.
that
that's
was the event.
that's the event.
All those other things happened because of that event.
That's awesome. I just wanted to say also hi to a warrior girl, and anyone who's watching today. Please subscribe to the Crone Zone. I have it in the description. Click away, subscribe,
Oh, yes,
like.
please.
We
Mhm.
really appreciate it.
We
I'm so
will.
grateful that they're here to talk to us today. And if you want to share any of your life quakes while we're discussing ours, please share them in
Please
the
do.
comments, because then we can maybe pull some cards for you at the end as we process this whole situation.
Yeah.
So Priscilla, did you have like an early childhood or young adult transition?
No.
Your dreams.
When I was little, probably in grade school, and it was a reoccurring dream that I had for years and years and years and years. And I would be running down the hall of our house. We had quite a long hallway with bedrooms off of it. And my parents' bedroom was on one side in the back, and mine was on the other with my little sister. And I'd be running down this hall, and my father was chasing me, and I thought he was going to spank me.
Oh,
I thought I was in trouble. He was trying to spank me. And whenever he would get close to me, I would leap up and land about 20 feet in front of him. And the whole thing would just go like that, on and on.
I can
He'd just
see you
catch up to
laughing
me.
when you're doing
And
it.
I was laughing. I was laughing and running away. Well, it wasn't until 60 years later, after my husband died, I was channeling information from him, and he told me my father wasn't chasing me to spank me. He was chasing me to keep me here on earth because I didn't want to be here.
wow.
I was like,
That's
what?
crazy.
Yeah, I really didn't want to be here, apparently. And every night I would try to escape, and every night he would bring me back.
Oh my God. Now that's one of those situations, like that's just
Weird.
like talk about life quakes. It's more like spirit quake.
It was definitely
Yeah.
a spirit quake when you told me that. It was like,
yeah.
well, I never thought I belonged here. I felt like the black sheep of the family, and I couldn't relate to any of them. I thought they were all just weird, and I just couldn't
Yeah.
relate. And I didn't believe that I belonged here.
And
So it made perfect sense once I found out. But what a way to find out. So that's really the earliest thing that ever happened to me. But my childhood quake, I would say, was realizing the church wasn't for me. We grew up
that was-
Episcopalian,
Yeah.
and it was all love and light and Jesus in the school age groups when you were little, and all about love. It was all about Jesus and his love for children and everything, and all just pure love. And as soon as you got old enough to go up into the big church, it was all about hellfire and damnation. You're going to die because you didn't do this. You're going to hell because you didn't do that. And the day I got confirmed, I decided this just really wasn't for me. Number one, why am I going to tell some old man in a dress my transgressions?
none of his business.
What his damn business? He wasn't part of my family.
That was the biggest thing I had against the Catholic Church. And I grew up in a Jewish area, and the next was Catholic, and then it was us. It was like 90% Jewish.
Yeah.
I always thought they're so hypocritical because their golf club excluded Jews. That's like 90% of the population there couldn't go to the golf club.
Yeah, I don't think you went to our church unless you were white Anglo-Saxon Protestant. There was nobody there but WASPs.
Right.
So when I got into university, I started Religions of the World because I was curious. I was still very curious. I knew there was something beyond us, but it certainly wasn't religion. So I studied all the different religions and decided they all say pretty much the same thing. And the bottom line is love is the answer. So why do I need a church? And that was it.
Mhm.
Right.
Done and
That's
dusted.
good.
It's funny because the one that I had chosen is also from the church.
Is
And
that
it
right?
spans a time from when I was a child, 6 years old, to when I was about to get married. I got married very young at 21.
Hmm.
And it was all related to the church. And the first part of that was when I was 6. My mother was a Baptist and my father was Catholic. But up until age 6, we never went to church. I didn't know what religion was. It was just
Oh,
like a
right.
nothing for me. Like I had no idea. At 6 years old, I was in a very Catholic community, and my best friend, her name was Maureen Harrington. I will always remember that. And she came from a very religious family. And she's like, I'm going to CCD. That's catechism, or, learn. That's what the Catholics do when you
Mhm.
don't go to Catholic school. And it was after school. And she said, aren't you going to CCD? And I said, yeah. This is how I was when I was 6. I was like, yeah, I'll go. So
Sure, why not?
I followed Maureen to CCD after school. Now, my mother was probably out of her mind because I never came home from school. She was probably calling everywhere, like, where is my, because back in those days, we walked to school. We walked
Mhm.
back
Yeah.
then. They
Yeah,
didn't
we
care.
did
That's
too.
true.
At kindergarten, yeah, I walked to school alone. So I learned that, oh, I'm going to be Catholic. And I had a little workbook and all of this. And I come home, look, Mom. And come to find out that I actually was Catholic. I was actually baptized. I didn't know.
No.
I didn't even know what being Catholic was. But
Right.
I could have walked into any religion, but I actually was kind of steered toward a religion that I was actually supposed to be in, at
Right.
least from the family's point of view. And so it was kind of like, she found CCD. Well, I guess we have to go through this process. And I went through an entire life, like childhood, very devout. Like the church was part of our life. Holy Week, the whole thing. Like I would have considered myself a good Catholic girl at that time. I actually didn't protest against it until I got to my confirmation. That was the second, I guess, mini life quake. I got in a fight with a priest. I was supposed to spit back the answers to things like what is the nature of the Trinity and that sort of thing. And we had a very canned thing we were supposed to
Right.
study and give back. And I questioned it. And I said, I don't really understand this whole, Father, Son, Holy Spirit. How can it all be one? Like I had more questions. I wanted to grasp an understanding at a deeper level. And
Uh-oh, you ask questions.
it's like he said,
Oh.
you have to, answer the question the way we taught you, or I'm going to call your dad and you're not going to get confirmed. So it's like, okay, I'll be a good girl. So that was like the first like crack, like, all right, I'm starting to think logically. There are certain things that are not adding up for me. Like I want to know more. And I think the big life quake was when I was 21 and I'm going to get married. This is a holy sacrament. This is the next big sacrament in my life path. I've found the person I'm going to marry. I'm still married to him. So, there you go.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, still married. Going to be 36 years next month.
Oh,
But
congratulations.
the priest was like, I feel like you're too young. I feel like you asked too many questions. This was the same priest I kind of challenged. You could like run a corporation or you could do this or that. And I don't know if you're, meant to be married. Like I could tell that his ego was bruised a little bit from the past. And then he just decided, you have to go to special counseling. And if they decide you're going to get married, then I'll marry you because I don't want to ding on my, how did he put it? Like he didn't want this to end in divorce and it would look bad on him. Like he was keeping track of how many relationships wouldn't work. I was like, what's going on here? So we went to the counseling and it was a setup. And at the very end, even though we did everything they told us, they said, nope, we're not going to marry you. We don't feel like you should be married.
Wow.
So that was a huge life quake for me because at that moment, everything I had believed about the religious upbringing was just shattered. That the priest
did it make you question your decision to get married at all?
No.
I mean, who you were with?
No, and this is, I
Thank
guess,
God.
where the transformation came in
Right.
because I was just like, no, God darn it, I'm going to get married. We're going to get married. But how do we do this? So we actually went to the Unitarian church and we had a meeting with the minister and we were like shell shocked, like
Sure you
PTSD.
were.
And we're like, okay, but they wouldn't marry us, but we're doing this and that. We got jobs and we're trying to defend ourselves. And he goes, are you over 21? And we were like, yeah. And he's like, are you crazy? And we're like, no. He goes, I'll marry you. And it was like,
Reasonability.
and we were like instantly relaxed. And it was like, we talked and he's like, like he explained what they did at the Unitarian church and how they kind of are open to all beliefs, but all we ask is that you're open to what we believe in. He gave us some literature and that was it. And that started a whole transformation spiritually for me to kind of look beyond that structure.
The
And
structure of the Catholic.
I
Yeah,
started to look outside to different belief systems. And that kind of started, I guess you could say, part of my spiritual evolution. Although I wanted to add I don't harbor any like ill will toward the Catholic Church. I've gotten over that. I think I was angry for a while, but I realized that upbringing also taught me a lot that I use today, in my prayer, in my meditation, in the symbolism, all of that. It even helped me as a tarot reader. So there's a reason for everything, right?
Yeah, there is.
There's a
For
reason
sure.
for
That's
everything.
an interesting one.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
I know, illustrious orchestrations. I never went through confirmation. Confirmation, man.
We took our catechism class, I guess we were 14 or so, 14 or 15, and that's when you became confirmed. You couldn't have the sacraments until you had gone through catechism and been confirmed.
Yeah.
It was all done as a teenager. And all my girlfriends that I went to school with, and some of the boys that I grew up with, we all went through it together. We went through dance class and all that stuff together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I went through a type of catechism that wasn't called that, but I don't remember what it was called. But the thing that got me was all the guys and girls that I knew in school were going to bar mitzvah and bar mitzvah classes and then having these big parties. And they'd come back and say, well, everything they got. And I'm going, what's a bar mitzvah? I want one of those.
Yeah, we'll take one of those.
That was fun.
You get things. And then they start, and Christmas is always Hanukkah, Christmas together. Like the classroom door would have Christmas stuff on one side and Hanukkah stuff on the other side.
Well, that's inclusive. That's pretty cool.
That's
for
very
the 60s.
inclusive. And they would come back the first day of Hanukkah. I got this. I got this on the second day, or I got this and I got this. And we didn't have to wait till after Christmas. Meanwhile, we're hearing about all these neat things these guys get.
Yeah, yeah.
But that's what you get when you're brought up with a Jewish community.
That's it.
I like Sheila's. Hi, Sheila.
Yeah, hi,
She had
Sheila.
cake for
I know. I just
confirmation.
saw Sheila.
That's cool.
I had a cake for my confirmation. That's the best part. Is the
That's
party
the best
afterwards
part.
and the bar mitzvah.
I don't think any of us really understood much of anything about
No.
the catechism. We really weren't paying any attention. We were just doing it because we
Yeah.
had to.
Right.
I did grow up thinking everybody had Jewish, and everybody knows what Hanukkah is. I found
Right.
out
I had
that's
no
not
idea.
But I just assumed everybody knew what the story was and what all these other holidays were.
Right. Right. All right. So let's jump ahead and let's jump through time because we've kind of done like our childhood, young adult.
Right.
And let's look at like our midlife because this is and I'm going to consider midlife anything from like 30 to 50, like that middle part of our lives where we're like working and a little bit more settled, a little more focused. Family may or may not have been involved in our lives. I mean, I don't know what everybody's different. Can you think of like a big transition that kind of upped you up?
Want me to go first this time?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Oh yeah, I've got one. 1995, right in the middle of my career. I got laid off.
Oh, that's a big one.
Whoa. I got laid off. I'd never been laid off in my life. I'd always been recruited for every position I'd ever had, including that one.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of saw it coming because the company was just not making the sales they needed to make. and I was um, in charge of regulatory affairs and quality assurance. I was director at the time, and I got laid off. I didn't know what to do. I loved the people I work with. It was my favorite job, and still is the favorite job I ever had. And I'm still friends, even with the guy that laid me off.
Oh,
Can you
wow.
believe that? Yeah, we're still friends. We still talk. In fact, I'm still friends with all the directors, management of that company to this day. And that was 1995. I got laid off.
Wow.
I had another job, but I had to sell my house and move. I was in Fort Worth, and my daughter was at TCU and getting ready to graduate. And I sold my house and moved to Houston and went to work for a cardiology company in Houston. And I was, what am I doing? I was still very, it was chaotic because I just was not planning to lose that job or move or anything. But I sold my house in 2 weeks, and I had a new job in 2 weeks.
Mhm.
The house sold on the first day that it was shown.
Wow.
So it was like, okay, I guess I'm supposed to be doing this. And I moved to Houston, and about a month later, I got a job inquiry. Somebody called me and said some people I'd worked with in Dallas that were from England were interested in hiring me to come to England. Was I interested? And I was like, oh, hell yes. Houston, Texas, Manchester, England. No question.
No question.
No, there was just no question. Jennifer just graduated from university, from TCU. So I didn't have to worry about her. She was moving to Chicago. I took the job. She went with me, stayed with me for a month, set up my house while I started my job. She set up my little house. It took like a month for my stuff to get there by ship because it all had to come by
Right.
ship. And about 5 months after I got there, I met my husband.
Wow.
So I moved in April, the early April of 95. I met him in November of 95, and we got married in 97. And my husband was a psychic medium, unbeknownst to me.
Or him.
Or him, actually, at that time.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is as our relationship progressed, his psychic abilities came out, and I became his, I don't know that muse is the right word, but I was right where he thought he was going crazy. I'm like, no, I don't think so. I was there supporting him through all that because he was an engineer. It just didn't click with him to have these messages. He was very black and white until then. So it was a huge transformation for him. And that was, I guess, the beginning of my transformation as well.
Wow.
So it was a huge life quake.
Yeah, like together. It's like, I don't know, those energies meet and you both transform. That's kind of neat.
And we both transformed. It was pretty amazing.
Wow.
And we found out later through my dad, when he started channeling my dad, that it was all divine and we were supposed to meet. And come to think of it, I had actually had an astrology chart done probably when the first computer ones came out.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember reading it and throwing it away right before I moved to Houston. When I had sold my house, I was cleaning things out because I was moving to an apartment. I didn't know what my life was going to be. And I pulled out this, like 30 pages, and they're all folded together type of computer things with the little things you took off the edges.
Yeah, I remember those. Yeah. I remember those.
And it said that I would marry a foreigner in that. And I remember laughing at it and going, well, that didn't happen. But it said I would marry a foreigner later in my life. Well, I was 43 when I married David. Or when I met him. I was 45 when we got married.
Which would be like later compared to the average marriage. So right on. It's
absolutely.
Right on. Wow.
Yeah, I was married when I was 20, but it lasted about 2 years, and that was it.
Yeah.
I didn't get married again until then. So that was kind of interesting.
That
Serious life quakes there.
That is serious life quakes and synchronicity for sure.
Synchronicity for sure.
Yeah.
And when I look back on my life, I can see a gazillion synchronicities like that. Have you ever sat and looked at all these things that have
Yes.
just gone boom, 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 even when you thought they were terrifying?
Absolutely.
Boom, boom, boom.
Yep, absolutely. And I really feel like a lot of these transitions we're talking about have that element of synchronicity built right in. I mean, it just seems like it's popping up over and
Yeah,
over.
I agree.
So Heather, what's yours?
Well, I guess the first thing, but I'm not really sure exactly how everything worked out. But in 1979, my first husband we'd known each other about 9 years. He died in a car wreck. He ended when he hit a bridge and went out. But that's before he had to wear seatbelts. But no, he might have supposed to have been, but he didn't. Anyway, so that was a huge change because we had 2 little kids, and it did change my life. It was huge.
Oh, yeah.
And I didn't know where I was going from there. I just knew that all the dreams I had were gone. Sorry.
That's okay.
How about a little Kleenex? 'Cause,
yeah.
we.
But come to find later on, when she was channeling, he actually came through. I had been told when she's channeling that it was a good thing. That was an exit point for him if he chose to take it, and he did. And we asked him why, and he said because all the shit was coming down for everything that he had done. He was going to have to face it, and he didn't want to. And I understand that now. And also, I had been told that it would not have been good for me had he lived, had he continued on. And he confirmed, yes, he would have done that. It would not have been good for me. So,
He was verbally and physically abusive, right?
Yeah. And it would not have ended well.
Right.
So,
well, I'm thankful you're still here.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I am thankful I'm still here. I felt there was something, it was almost a release when he did die, but I had always felt that nothing could happen to me now at this point because there was nobody to take care of the kids. I had a job to do. I could not leave this world. I was going to have to stay here.
Mm-hmm.
So nothing, if I was scared about something, I didn't really need to be scared. Nothing would happen because my job wasn't done.
Right.
I don't
Seemed
know
to work.
why. I don't know why I thought that, but that was like, okay, he's not here. You can do what you need to do,
Right.
and it won't be stopped. So I don't know why I felt that until I found out all about this other stuff, and that was okay then. But I don't really know what it had to do other than allowing me the freedom to do what I felt was right and get away from some of the
Abuse.
the further. But it was life changing. It
Mhm.
did free me up, and it also in some ways made me stronger. So, like living in Kansas, they had a way of doing things. Well,
Yes.
I didn't. Not all the time. I didn't always do the things they did. In fact, hardly ever. I was considered different, but they liked me.
Right.
So,
Yeah, that really helped you, I think, to it's tragic and it was hard, but it's almost like it freed you
it did.
to be
It allowed me
right
to
now.
continue living
Yeah.
and living more the way I needed to live.
Authentic.
Yeah,
Authentically, and to evolve spiritually.
Mm-hmm.
Think of like all that you've grown. Like you said, it would have been bad for you. Those messages, you might not have even been here to do what you're doing right now.
That's right.
That's right.
That's huge.
It is
It
huge.
is huge.
Wow.
It was a big earthquake.
Yeah, that's a big one. That's huge. Thank you for sharing that. Because I'm like really emotional now. But thank you. Because I think people need to hear that. I think sometimes we had talked about this backstage earlier when we were preparing the show. I wanted to talk personally about things that have happened to us and experiences that we had, because I feel like sometimes people might see us as maybe above that, or maybe,
Or everything's been roses. It hasn't.
Oh, hell no.
It has
Yeah.
not all been roses.
It's like, well, I'm struggling, so I'm going to watch them because somehow they had it all together. No, not all. Like we all have. I had a wise mentor say, "We all have something, Carrie. We all have something.
We all have issues in our tissues.
That's I like that one. Issues in our tissues.
We all have
We
baggage.
all have issues in our tissues.
Yep, every single one of us,
We
and
do.
challenges.
So what was your next quake?
My next quake, and I had a lot. And I'm going to say that when I looked and tried to reflect on my early life, and I don't want to say I had a perfect childhood, but I really had trouble identifying very specific life quakes until my early 20s. So I had a very peaceful kind of childhood. I was lucky that way. But I feel like the middle part of my life, that's when it all happened, man. That's like when I couldn't even choose all the one. I'm like, which one should I talk about? Because there are so many. It was like
I had a million to pick from, but it was mainly younger, not middle. It
Isn't
was
that so
younger.
And when I see other psychics on TV, they'll always talk about the trauma of their childhood and stuff and how that shaped them. And I'm like, my childhood was pretty easy, but my young adult life and the middle part of my life was very difficult. And I would say there was one, again, that goes back to what my mentor says. We all have something. It might be at different phases of our life, depending on what we were supposed to learn. And mine was the middle part of my life.
Right.
The one that I identified was my teaching career, because I had a hard time in the beginning just trying to get a job, because back then I graduated in 1989. I took an extra year when we got married, and there were no jobs here in Massachusetts. There was something called Proposition 2.5, and they basically, I guess it was the amount of taxes that people would pay. There was like a cap on it. So none of the money was going into the schools. Most of that baby boom generation was securely in the positions in the schools. They weren't going anywhere. And then a bunch of them got fired because of 2.5. And there was a period of, I'd say late 80s to about 1995, where no one got hired as a teacher in this area. To get a teaching position was very rare. So you might sub for 2-3 years, maybe try to get a position. Maybe it would work out. Maybe you just give up and go into other areas. And that's what a lot of my particular generation did. We made jokes of we'd leave on those job fairs, and you'd go through and you'd be like, it's nothing. And you just throw your resumes up and just say, screw it. So I had gone and worked at a bank for a while, and I decided to go to graduate school, and I'm going to, get this over with and just hope a teaching job opens up. So I had to fight for a job. There were 3 to 5 jobs available in 2 states that I'm near, Rhode Island and Massachusetts. And I fought to the death to get one of them. And I did. And that was huge. And then the rest was this need, oh my God, does I need this job? I had little kids at home, and I was pretty much the sole supporter of my family at that particular time. My husband was going through a transition in his business. Money was tight. And this sense of perfection, this sense of I have this responsibility. I have to be perfect at this job because I'm so lucky to have this job. Everyone is going to fight me for this job. If I mess up, there are 80 people waiting to take this job. It was that.
Wow, no pressure.
It was huge pressure. And of course,
Jeez.
Me being me, I just put more pressure on myself. Right?
Stacked it on really good.
And I had to be perfect. And I became a national board certified teacher within 5 years. One of the biggest accomplishments of my life.
Wow.
Because I was getting up at 4:30. I was pregnant with my 4th child. I'd go throw up, come back, work on my portfolio, get the kids all ready before I went to work. I had this regimented life, workaholic, no doubt. And I had my sights on being department chair. So the day came when the department chair retired. And I had done everything. I had put all my ducks in a row, did all the work, everything. And I'm going to apply for this job and I'm going to move up my career. And they gave the job to a younger guy that I had actually mentored when he first started teaching. So it was like big slap in the face. Like, that's how I perceived it.
Of course.
And at the time, I can look back and think of this a lot differently and a lot of mistakes that I made. But at the time, that was my perspective. And it was like a life quake for me, because it was like the whole rigidity, the whole like workaholic thing, it was kind of came to a peak, and then it was for nothing in my mind. And it was like, I completely just lost my mind at that point. I pieced out, and I ended up quitting my job right after that. I just quit. Did
you regret quitting it that fast?
Well, I think at the time, no. I think in perspective, I should have processed more. But this is the weird part. This is where the transformation thing comes in. Because it was such a dramatic reaction, and the fact that I had to scramble and I had to heal myself. And it took a whole year from me. I literally sat in my house for a year and just healed myself from being a workaholic, honestly. And then I started to notice the world a little bit. And then I started reading tarot professionally right after that. I had another series of events happen where I started to read for people, and I started to work on self-healing and helping to heal others. And I started taking spiritual classes and connecting with a spiritual community. And so this whole thing kind of opened up, and it wouldn't have if I hadn't made such a dramatic change.
Right. So it was the right thing to do.
Because I wasn't going to do it on my own. It was like Spirit had to say, no, you can't go down this path. This is not the path for you. This door is shut. You're done. You need to go through this door. Who knows what's on the other end of that door? And I didn't know. I still don't know everything that's on the other side of the door. But it was one of those moments where at the time, you didn't understand. And it was traumatic, but it led to a whole new path.
Right. Mm-hmm. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
That is beautiful.
So that was my midlife. So our last one, because I know and I wanted to pull some cards for some people too, but this would be now, because you're I was laughing about this before, because you're the Crone zone, and you called me a baby Crone. So I was like, yep, I'm a baby Crone.
You're a baby Crone.
You're a baby Crone.
Yep, I'm right here in the circle. And so we've had these experiences, and
these were all experiences that we had before we were really on our spiritual path.
Yeah, they were more experiences that got us onto the path.
That's right.
Mm-hmm. At least to do what we needed to do now. Yeah. And I guess that leads to, but we're not done yet. So what transitions have we experienced in our later years? I'd say age 50 on to where we are now. The Crone years.
Crone years.
Crone years.
There's a couple for me.
Go for it.
The first one is that I knew that there were. I had come to the point where if something showed up 3 times, that was it. I was doing that thing, and that's how I met hers. Because on my computer, I was looking for other psychic fairs besides the ones I already knew about, and she showed up the first time. 3 different times I looked in the computer. So I ended up going to hers. And that's how we got together.
That's how we met and started doing our healing work together.
Right. But the other one was when she was channeling and during COVID. And my father came in, because I loved my father. I really did. And I respected him. Didn't like him very much. Didn't like him at all. Be honest.
With good reason.
Well, my dad set the precedence when I was born. He was never there for my birthday. He was always out doing concerts. Even the day I was born, he was someplace else playing a concert.
Wow.
So, I really should have realized somewhere down the line, that's the way it was going to be always, because it always was. The thing that I think that rubbed it in so much was that my grandfather's birthday was the same day. And he lived in Minnesota and we lived in New Jersey. And he always managed to be with my grandfather for our birthday. He's never home. Isn't it wonderful that I can celebrate this with my dad?
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it was a bone of contention, and that was just one of the things that would happen, you know. So the thing that made the biggest difference for me is after we got going in and understanding about contracts and what we had done, that really there was nothing to forgive him for. He was simply doing what I said I needed to have done.
Right.
And so it was surprising because when he came through and was apologizing and hoped that I would forgive him, I said, there's nothing to forgive you for. That's what I asked for. That's what you did. You're fine.
Right.
And I feel a whole lot better about him than I ever did.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it has made a big difference. Working in this work has made a huge difference in how I perceive things.
Oh, absolutely.
I agree. Like, I mean, not just that's your experience, but I totally understand that even in my experiences.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Perception and how I perceive. That's why in that last story I told, I feel like I was trying to explain it how I perceived it then, but I can perceive that story completely differently now.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And thankfully,
Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
Very thankfully. There's no more
Yes.
of that anger in your heart for him, and that's wonderful.
Yeah.
That's healing for
Yeah.
everybody, including him.
yes, yes.
Right.
Pretty
So
cool.
what's yours?
I would have to say my biggest quake was the loss of my husband, my sister, and my mother within 3 months of each other in 2015.
Yeah.
I had been on my spiritual path since we moved back to the States about 2003. I met some spiritually interested people and that would get together. And what she was talking about was that I had opened a wellness center, a goddess center is what I called it. But it was Eli, Energy, Light, and Information Alternative Wellness Center. I had gone and taken a healing class through the reconnection. And I'd started working on my horses at first on the farm. And then when David retired, the only thing in his building, his metal building, was his little boat, his fishing boat. And I was like, we need a goddess center. Me and my friends, we've lost our place on the highway. We need a new spot. So we opened it up and brought every month or every couple of months, I think I'd have a psychic fair, but it was also bringing in other healing modalities. And we had a room where people would teach, have classes on anybody or demonstrations of things that they were interested in. It was a lot of fun. And I opened that in 2010. I met her in 2012. David, Mom, and Sherry died in 2015. David in October, Sherry in November, and Mother first week of January of 16.
Wow. That's a lot.
That was a hell of a lot. I was so processing David, I could barely process my sister, much less my mother, who'd had dementia and had not been herself for several years. But nevertheless, the three of them died, and all I felt was relief. I mean, don't get me wrong. I miss them. I love them, each and every one of them. But I wasn't afraid. I knew they were fine. I wasn't afraid that they weren't okay. I knew that they were fine. My spiritual beliefs were fantastic. I'm not afraid of death at all. I understand as much as a human can understand what's on the other side, I believe. And but the loss of David and all the communications I had with the other side, because he was the psychic, I wasn't. My house got real quiet real quick.
Yeah.
We had so many crazy experiences and so much information coming from the other side. When Heather and I would work on him, he had heart disease and we worked on him a lot. and he would disappear and he would just channel information to us.
Mhm.
He would be laying down on a massage table and just
Wow.
It was,
Yeah.
it was,
It was
and you didn't know
phenomenal.
who was coming
You never knew who was
because there
coming
were
through.
different entities and people, even himself as a kid.
Child.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Sparky kid.
Yeah, it was pretty, it was just a fascinating period of time, information wise, spiritually,
Mhm.
and spiritual growth for him, for me, even for Heather.
Oh, definitely.
And so we got suddenly really quiet when they died.
Mhm.
I cleaned out the ranch. We moved to Key West. See, Mother died in January. We moved to Key West the following May. I didn't sell the house. I owned the house for several years later, but we cleaned it out, brought our stuff here, moved here, and about 2 months later, my daughter was here with her husband and 2 kids, and my smoke alarm went off. We're all like, "What is the deal?" Because it wasn't like going off like it normally does.
Mhm.
My daughter goes, "Mom, do you think that's Poppy?" David. I was like, "What? Don't be ridiculous." So I said, "Is this David?" Beep.
We set up the rules
But we
first.
set it
One
up.
beep for yes, 2 beeps for no.
It was David. And
Wow.
we're all
We
sitting in the
started
living
asking
room
questions
asking questions, and I'm like, "Oh my God."
and getting answers.
And asking questions and getting answers. And we were totally flipped out. So I was trying to listen. I was having a really hard time connecting to hearing. And it took me a couple of years to sort of get it together. But he was having trouble connecting too because he didn't know how to do it. He said, "This is new for me too." So we
Right.
were trying to do it together. And finally, we got there about when did COVID happen? 2020? That's when it kicked in. It was like COVID hit and I could talk to David. I was channeling entities, interdimensionals, all kinds of fairies, you name it.
Yeah.
Even Bigfoot. My sister has Bigfoot on her property. So
Jeez.
Bigfoot came for a couple of times and gave me messages for her, which was like, "Oh my God, Bigfoot. Okay. I thought it wasn't real." So my
Sweet
husband is
girl.
crazy. Oh yeah, I used to turn to her and go, "Am I nuts? Am I really going loopy?" No, you're all right.
Talk to mermaids.
Dude.
Talk
Yeah.
to mermaids, a mermaid from Inner Mars.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yep.
You name it. We talked to them.
That's great.
And then that part actually slowed down after COVID, after the shutdown. But for a couple of years, it was pretty crazy.
Mhm.
I'm not sure why the slowdown happened. I'm still processing that. Other things have happened since then, but
Mhm.
nothing like what was going on during COVID. But I have to say, David woke me up.
Yeah.
He died. He woke me up.
He woke you up.
Yeah. So that was a pretty big change because I was not the psychic. I've always had good intuition, and I knew I was a healer, but I didn't. I'm too much of a control freak. It's really hard for me to pay attention to voices in my head because I think it's me.
Right. But I mean, to channel, there's an element of releasing some sort of control
Yes,
there.
you
too, right?
definitely have to release it. And I would be sitting in the corner watching this stuff. I would trans channel some things, and now I don't trans channel at all. It just comes through.
It just,
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't. It's not trans channeling, which I kind of miss
yeah.
because there were some really interesting characters like Ramses II and King Arthur.
Mhm.
Their personality. It was so interesting to hear their personalities, feel their personalities, and hear my voice changes. How
Right.
my voice would change and the things that would come out of my mouth that were like,
And
You're like,
our
what's going on? Yeah.
we had 2 archons. We had an avian archon and a mantis
a mantis.
mantis archon.
A mantis and a what?
Avian.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. Mantis and avian. I forgot.
Well,
It's
you
been so
actually,
long.
she actually felt the feathers on the wings.
Yeah.
Oh, all right.
Oh, yeah. When I would channel, I could feel Archangel Michael's wings
Mm-hmm.
wrap around me. I could feel my wings as a dragon. Yeah.
And
It was
Archon,
amazing.
the mantis, came to visit me one night. It was so cool. I was trying to touch him because he's huge, and all I could see was the claw. I'm going, touch my hand, touch my hand.
I promise we're not nuts. This truly
No,
happened.
we're not nuts. We're not.
No,
He said
none
he
of us
really
are
had a hard time getting small enough to fit in my room, but
I think they're huge, like 15
I think he's got to
feet
be
tall.
huge. Yeah,
Yeah. Wow.
but it was
No.
fun.
No, for me, like I kind of felt like this was hard because there were so many in the middle, not many in the beginning, and now I feel like I'm just getting to my big life quake transitions. I think I'm
Sounds like
actually
because you're getting ready to move, aren't
I'm
you?
getting ready to move. So I think my transition is like I'm in mid life quake right now.
Right.
Because it started last October and my father-in-law passed away. We were on top of a mountain hiking. And this was a year-long goal that I was going to climb this mountain. So here I was. This is the big day. And he must have passed either the night before I climbed this mountain or while we were climbing this mountain. We don't know quite when he passed exactly. So we climbed the mountain, and I remember getting to the top. And this is the White Mountains in the fall. And if anyone has seen that, it's the most beautiful sight, color everywhere. It's just absolutely gorgeous. And I'm looking and I'm like, I really just want to be here. Like I want to like just live here. Like this is, I felt very at home.
Mm-hmm.
And we get off the mountain and we find out the news that he had passed the night before. And that has led to a series of events that's correlating with other things in my life. Like I needed a change in the spiritual work that I was doing. And I'd already started going through a transition. I wanted to rebrand myself. I wanted to do more YouTube. I wanted to do more writing. I didn't want to just do readings for people, but I just didn't know how I was going to be able to pay my bills in the transition. My father-in-law's passing kind of helped me with that, to be honest.
Right.
And then also, this is the very last year of my youngest child finishing school. So he's in college right now. And so he will be graduating.
Heck, I moved to England when my daughter graduated.
Exactly. It's like the last one. He's graduating. And it's not that we're going to help our children like through their whole lives. It doesn't,
Sure.
But there is something symbolic of my legal responsibilities. Well, they had been gone for a while because he's over 18, but I felt a moral responsibility to help them through college, so at least one degree. And then I told them after that, they're kind of on their own, and here it is. So all of these points are sort of happening where one phase of my life is ending and another one is beginning.
Yeah,
so we just decided we're moving north. We don't know how this is exactly happening per se. We haven't found the right property. We haven't, there's just so many moving parts happening right now. I have another son. And he's going to be moving to Florida. So we have to help him move. So I've got to get these two older children in their spots. We have to find our spot. And and it's going to happen this year. I already feel inside that before the end of 2023, I'm going to be in a completely new place. My husband's going to have a new job. I'm going to be working on new jobs. And I'm going to be living in a different lifestyle. So it's exciting because I think
you'll move to the mountains, in the mountains.
We're going to move definitely on one of the communities on the outside of the White Mountains. It will be like in a more rural community. I can't afford the more touristy places. And I didn't really want to be in a touristy place because too many people.
I don't recommend a tourist place.
Yeah.
We don't, Key West is very touristy and we don't go anywhere near the tourist
areas. No, we're not involved with that. But I was just wanting to say that just because you're as old as we are doesn't mean you're done. No, but even if you are as old as you're not done.
You're not.
because I know that we are always starting new things.
I was 69 when we started the YouTube channel. How insane is that? I
Yeah.
didn't think I'd be doing anything like this at 70 years old.
And I'm older than her.
And she's a couple years older than I am. So, I thought when I retired the last time, that would be it.
The last
Yeah,
time.
I
But
thought
it's
retirement,
not.
great. We can just that isn't what retirement
can't-
isn't.
No.
You can't
It's
play
finding
enough
new jobs.
You cannot play enough to be happy in retirement.
Right.
You
No.
have to
do
give.
something.
You have to
Right.
give back. You have to
You-
Mhm.
help others.
You have to, I think of retirement as a way of, if you have financial stability just to pay your basic needs, that's freeing you up to do the things that you always wanted to do.
Following your bliss.
Exactly.
And it may involve not earning money, the thing that you do, or it
Mhm.
could be for some people, it's like, this is my time to develop the business I always
Yeah,
wanted.
exactly.
And maybe they will make money, but it's not like that was their focus. Like when you're younger and you're like, I like that story I told, like that responsibility. If I don't have this job, we all starve. Like there was a
Well,
real
that's
fear.
how we were raised too.
Yeah,
is,
that's how
got-
we were raised.
Yeah.
Like, and
there's
now,
just no question.
yeah, and you bought into it. But yeah. All right. So I know we only have a few minutes, and I didn't really get many questions in the chat. So I thought maybe we could close and maybe pull some cards
Sure.
about what spirit wants us to know about life quakes and life transitions and the stories that I'm sure people who are watching this or who will watch this will identify with some of these stories and maybe reflect on it. And maybe we
I'm
can get some
sure.
final thoughts.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
take a look.
Well, I'm going to use my Kyle Gray's Angels and Ancestors Oracle cards today.
And I will use the
And by the
fairy oracle cards. And they're by Karen Kay.
Oh, okay. I am
She
going.
also does tarot fairy. And they're gorgeous and they're fun to use too.
I think I've seen those before. The tarot
The
fairy.
back is like this, so you probably have.
Yeah, they look familiar.
Yeah. And I like them as well.
Right.
But they don't, they're tarot cards, but they don't list things like wands and cups and pentacles.
I just want to say something about Carrie. Your Tarot Soul Writer class was so much fun. I actually miss it. I actually
miss
miss
it
that
too.
time together. It was really a great class. So if you're going to have that class again, I highly recommend it to anybody that is interested in learning tarot and soul writing.
And let me tell you about some future plans, because I wanted to maybe do something in the summer, like run the class again. But honestly, with this transition I'm going through, I was afraid to commit to that in case something went wrong. There's just too many things happening. But starting in October, I feel like I'm going to be more settled. And I think that will be the time I'm going to run the class again. But also for former members, I was hoping to maybe do like an afternoon or evening where you just come in and we just do questions and, just nothing formal, but, just kind of soul write together.
Soul write. I think that would be fun.
Yeah, like a soul writing group. So those things are coming up.
Cool.
And for anyone who is watching, it is fun. I felt like we kind of all bonded a little bit,
I thought we did too. We did too. It was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it.
It was fun.
Let me give a plug for our channel. Tomorrow is going to be the Wisdom Circle on the Crone Zone.
That's when there's 6.
That's when there's 6 of us talking
Panel.
about a subject.
Good show.
It's fun, and that's at 4:00 tomorrow afternoon. And actually, Heather is the presenter tomorrow. And you want to tell them what it's about?
Waking up to your gifts.
Oh, nice.
So that should be a good show.
Yeah,
that should be a very good show.
Yeah, that's going to be with Sun Psychic Jean, Terry Lee, Pure Visionary Psychic Medium, Terry Suzuki from Kiguru Spiritual Journeys, and Wisdom Seeker Joan. I got them all out. Yay.
Good for you.
That's hard to remember names.
It's going to be. They're all so talented.
They're very talented, beautiful ladies.
Beautiful.
So are you all doing a 3-card reading
Are you doing 3 cards or 1?
or what?
I
Kind
kind
of
of just, I did one oracle card and then I just, I'm working with the deck of characters. So
Ooh,
I
cool.
kind of
We
just
love
did like
that.
a little story from the deck of characters, like a final message.
Well, I think I'll just do one oral deck. Well, wait a minute. What are we reading for? I need to have
Final thoughts on
Quakes.
what Spirit wants our audience
Quakes.
to know about
Just a
life
note.
quakes and transitions, especially in light of the stories we told today.
I gotta go. Mine are just so awesome.
Go for it.
All right, go for it.
It's just, I mean, it just, the first card is the spring card. Watch your seeds grow. The second card is the snake. Shed your skin. Shed that old crap. Let it go. And the autumn with the raven. I love the raven. Release the old and rest.
Wow.
So I think those are beautiful cards.
That and so in tune with what we were talking about.
Yes, absolutely.
And so is this one. It's called Magical Blessings. That everybody needs to remember that whatever we're going through, whenever we're going through it, we're being assisted. We're being helped. We're not doing it by ourselves, even though we feel like we are. We're not.
Right.
And what's more, we can also help and bless others that are doing the same thing.
Absolutely. I love
Absolutely.
that.
So don't forget to help each other, but also know you're not doing this all by yourself.
Absolutely.
Certainly not in this community.
But
We've
even
got a
then,
ton of help.
Those on the
I
other
know,
side
you
of the veil
meant
are
the
helping.
ones. The ones around us in spirit.
And I got hot springs, and I kind of think of this as like an energy release, you know? I'm thinking of like the geysers and the, you know, it's a time when we go through these transitions of huge energy releases. And I got the cave, and I think of that as a metaphor for gaining wisdom. You know, like in a lot of the mythology, you go into the cave, and that's
The
when
hermit.
you're gaining
Kind of like a hermit.
inner knowledge. And I got the guitar at the end because it wakes you up to me, this is creativity and playing your own music and, you know, that type of thing. And
Love it.
I got the oracle card tools, and I thought like waking us up to our spiritual tools.
Tools.
So I
Yeah.
feel like they're saying these transitions, these life quakes, which is kind of funny. It's a hot spring because these are usually like in volcanoes. Like I'm thinking of like the national parks and
Yeah.
you know, their energy releases for us
Yeah.
to go into our cave, into ourselves, to get spiritual knowledge, to connect to our inner creativity, to our song, and wake
To
us
our
up to the
song.
tools, our spiritual tools.
Beautiful.
And I feel like it raises our vibration as we're doing them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Of course. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining
Well,
me
thanks for
today.
having us. What
I
a
really
cool
appreciate
subject.
it.
Yeah.
This is,
it was
yeah,
great.
I really enjoyed it. And for anyone in the audience, don't forget, go down below. I have their YouTube channel there. Click, subscribe,
Oh, please.
like the show. This will really help our channels. And I hope to talk to you again soon because I think I'm going to be on your show sometime next month. So
That's right. That's right.
I will look forward to it.
Thank you so
Thank
much
you
for
so
having
much.
us.
You're
We've had a
very
great
welcome.
time.
And thank
Bye.
you, everybody who came.
Bye, guys.
Bye.